everybody. This is Jackie Luqman.
And I'm Abdul-Shahid Luqman.
And welcome to Live in Coffee Current Events and Politics in Luqman Nation.
The most dangerous show. Almost, I jumped Q. The most dangerous show on social media.
We're still the most dangerous show on social media, even when we jump Q. What's going on, everybody? We're hoping that everybody has had a good week. It's been a hectic week for us.
Yes.
I know for a lot of people it's been like a stressful week on social media and in the news, right? So we're going to talk about a little bit of that stuff today. Not everything that's going on, because we can't cover everything that is going on in the world of politics in this country, because it's just so much stuff. But look, take a few minutes to invite some friends either over to Facebook or over to YouTube. We've got both platforms up and running. Woohoo! So we're seeing you guys join on both platforms. So hey to everybody. Let me slide over here because I don't know why I'm over. I'm not. I need to be close to. There we go. Yeah, so
and we want you to share.
Yes.
There is a reason why that we're the most dangerous show on the internet. We don't have to explain that to you guys. But also, we got both chats running. One on Facebook, one on YouTube.
YouTube over here.
So so we can engage you both. You know, like I said, we're a small operation. What you see is what we have. We didn't have the chance to kidnap college students and make them turn them into interns or nothing like that. So, but this is what you get. So we're going to try to work with that anyway. Why our audience is getting settled and set up and everything. Hey, you was on RT.
I was.
Yeah,
I was.
Jackie's Day.
That was a complete surprise. It was not. You know, we do a weekly segment on Loud and Clear on Sputnik Radio, and you can hear that every Friday. We've both been on. If you usually have to work, it's usually me. But we've both been on. We were on like last week or week before last.
Right.
Last week we were both on. It was a really great segment. We talked about obviously Kavanaugh before some of this stuff happened. We are regular guests on By Any Means. Well, not regular, but pretty frequent guests on By Any Means Necessary on Sputnik. And you know, because we just really know some great people, and we appreciate that they appreciate us and our input. We've been asked to be on the Critical Hour with Dr. Wilmer Leon. I don't know why Sputnik ain't paying us, but okay. I'm just saying, just putting that out there.
Right. And then also some upcoming events, and then we'll get into the show. Next week, God willing and the creek don't rise, Ajamu Baraka, the smartest man in the universe, is going to be as a guest on our show next week.
Yes.
And I say that in fun and love. You know, it's a private joke.
It is a private joke because there's a picture of Baraka that we love to share. Where it was a picture from like the 2016 presidential campaign.
Right.
Because you know Ajamu Baraka was the vice presidential candidate running with Jill Stein for the Green Party, and there's a picture of Ajamu Baraka where he's looking really, really seriously and intently into the camera, and he's got one eyebrow raised, and we always joke that look, that intense stare from Baraka will melt your brain if you're not careful. So he doesn't know anything about that joke, but he will be on the show. Good brother, just someone who we had the honor of connecting with, who we are really, really fortunate that we'll be able to have a conversation with and bring that conversation to you. And
one more thing before we move into the show. Last but not least, we like to thank you guys. When Jackie got on RT and Briggy, I wanted to let you know that she said that she caught you on RT, and she said bravo, was good work. And a lot of our friends said that, and we appreciate the support.
We do.
And we appreciate you guys, because when we started this platform a couple of years ago, we first started out on Blog Talk Radio, and we would faithfully do Blog Talk every Saturday. I don't even think any of you guys were with us then, but we was on Blog Talk Radio, and we would literally have no one listen. I mean, we would do our show, and I'm proud of the shows we did for Blog Talk.
Yeah.
We were up there in when Baltimore first happened after Freddie Gray.
Yep.
And we did interviews up there, and we posted them all on Blog Talk on our show at the time, and no one listened. But then after a while, we had picked up a listener in Louisiana or somewhere in Illinois and stuff.
This guy in Wisconsin who would always call in. Right.
But we stayed at it because we just felt that this is something that we wanted to do, and this is something that we were always interested in in politics and social justice and everything. So we just gave it a shot, and so now we're here. And as Drake said, we started from the bottom, now we're here. But the thing of it is that doesn't happen without people like you guys supporting us. And so trust me, we're no ingrates. We understand that you guys support us, And so anyway, enough of the Hallmark stuff.
Yeah.
We are going to go into the show.
Yeah, I mean, Uncle Brother over on YouTube asked what show.
All right.
I love that name.
Yeah, me too.
Which show on RT? It's in question, and we're going to provide the link for you on Facebook. But the link is also already in our YouTube chat, because that's what I was doing when I was sticking my face in the camera.
When I was getting ready to when I was telling the audience about how we feel about them, I was about ready to get all Kavanaugh on them, because I was like, what's up with you guys?
No, wait, were you about to get misty, or were you about to get angry? Or were you gonna angry cry?
I was getting ready to get into misty, angry Kavanaugh cry. But Matt Damon did it a lot better, but
Oh my gosh. If you have not seen the clip from Saturday Night Live with Matt Damon parodying Brett Kavanaugh during that, you have got to see that clip. It is hilarious. Not a huge SNL fan anymore, but and not a huge fan of Matt Damon. I couldn't care either way, but that parody was perfect. So that was a great segue.
That was a great segue.
That's a great segue. Let's talk about not just Brett Kavanaugh, because we've all seen the hearings, we've all heard the testimony, and I hope we all understand from the show that we did last week, specifically about the other reasons that Brett Kavanaugh should not be confirmed for the Supreme Court. He shouldn't be confirmed absolutely, because he was clearly politically biased in his testimony last week. He shouldn't be confirmed because he has a horrible temperament. You don't want somebody like that interpreting law for everybody in the country. You don't want somebody that unhinged.
No,
you
that's
don't.
True. Well, I mean, you figure like the Supreme Court, in spite of whatever their political ideologies may be, is always looked at as the grown-ups in the room.
Right. They're supposed to be the august.
Right.
You know, the
I mean, you don't want a guy out there, taking a big law book and throwing it at, some lawyer about, how dare you bring that up in here? You know what I mean? You know how many bears you're keeping me from?
This is taking too long. My buddies are waiting for me down in the bar in the corner.
PJ, Eminem.
Wrap it up, Squid. whatever his name was. But okay, we've seen the reasons last week, aside from the sexual assault allegations that at least 3 other women have come out and accused him also of, and men who he went to school with at the time have corroborated that. We've seen now that this FBI investigation is some bull. And can we just say that anybody on the left who actually believed or who hung their hopes, hoped that the FBI would come up with an investigation or reason to stop the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh, if you put your hopes in the FBI, there's something wrong with you.
Well, look, the FBI has an FBI director, and every FBI director serves at the pleasure of the president. So it's no surprise that the way that this investigation has been going so far, Trump's hands is all over it.
Right.
Trump actually came out today, and we're going to talk about. We might as well talk about it now. Trump. I mean, there's times that I attempt humor, and I failed pretty bad,
Not all the time.
Not all the time, but there's times I've tried and it didn't go over well, But Trump really did what was that, faux pas, whatever.
A faux pas.
Yeah, faux pas. And he called himself, he was at one of his Klan-based rallies, and what happened was he got caught on basically making fun of Dr. Ford in her testimony.
Yeah.
And some of the Republicans, some of course his base laughed at it. But I mean, they laughed at it. But some Republicans came out and Democrats came out against it, and Chuck Schumer was able to, that he's good at that, condemning stuff,
Yeah.
Until it's time to make a deal with him. But other than that, this didn't go over well, and it also shows how this whole thing with the Kavanaugh hearings has really been just beating up on women's rights, just beating up on the Me Too movement. I mean, all of this stuff. It's just to me, it's and I think you and I were talking about this before the show. We were saying how and we just have to look at it for what it is. You have rich white men, basically, continuing the old boys network, or club, whatever you want to call it, and basically saying to you women to just shut up.
Exactly.
Well, white women, really.
Shut up. Yeah, that's true. But I think it's also very important that we recognize that some of the people who are also telling women in this country and our men who support us to shut up are also rich white women, some rich white women. Because we cannot dismiss the role and the complicity that some women have in propping up these kinds of men. I mean, come on, look at it. People are celebrating because I think it's Senator Mikulski, I think from Alaska, has decided, and somebody correct me if that's not the correct senator has said that she's not going to vote to confirm him.
Right.
Her vote is a no. But Susan Collins has now said she's satisfied with this investigation. So I mean, don't tell me that there is not a cadre of white women in this country who are just fine with abusive white men, who are not just fine with the old boys network, as long as they can benefit from the old boys network, right? Because when we saw the clip of Trump mocking Dr. Blasey Ford at that rally, it wasn't just men behind him. It was, and laughing. There were women too. And I think that as women, we need to come to grips with the fact, and I can say this as a black woman because this is what we've always said about some white women in this country. White supremacy could not continue to exist in this country if white women didn't uphold the patriarchy part of it, because they benefit from the positioning of power that they get. There's a reason women marry these kinds of men, the Kavanaughs and the, one of the things that ticks me off about people on the left.
What's that?
Is that we have so much sympathy for Melania Trump. We act like she's like kidnapped or something. And I've always said to these people, why do y'all think that Melania Trump is in a marriage that with somebody she doesn't know he is a horrible person?
And I understand what you mean. It's like, it was always this thing on the left, like this thing that we have to rescue her.
Right. Yeah. Melania, blink twice if you can hit. No, Melania doesn't want to blink twice. Melania she is happy with that money. She has always been happy with that money. She knew that man was a sexual predator when she married him, just like the two women before. Now, maybe they didn't know how bad he was, but when they found out, they stayed until he got tired of them. Mm-hmm. So Melania knew what that man's track record is. She's not going to blink twice. She doesn't want to be rescued. She likes that money. She likes that exposure. She likes that power. So for us on the left to act as if there are not women who are complicit with these men, and there's an article, and I have to find it. I think it was in Time magazine, I believe. I have to check, but I'm gonna find it and share it with you guys. where some woman wrote a letter to the women who support Kavanaugh and Trump. And the letter wasn't like, what is wrong with you all? You all are horrible. You're enabling our abusers and our oppressors.
Right.
It was all, oh, I understand. They're confused. They need help. We need to explain to them. We don't need to explain to these people anything. Those women understand exactly the kinds of men they are married to. They don't have a problem with those men being abusive to us as long as they get the benefits from their abuse of us.
Yeah, and it's also them understanding that this is the cost of doing business. You know, you want access to this part of society. You want access to this wealth. You want access to this power and influence. Well, that doesn't come cheap.
Yep.
You know, even if you're the spouse, it doesn't come cheap. It's no different than during the plantation class of white women knowing that their husband's going out in the slave fields to impregnate black women and rape black women.
Exactly.
You know, but
exactly.
it was the cost of doing business. He got his mulatto children running around. I see them out there, and I know they're his. But if I want this lifestyle, if I want the power and influence that this lifestyle brings me, then this comes with a price. No amount of shaming. And we've seen this even during the time of, you know, because, you know, history, we always got to bring history in this. We seen that no amount of moralizing from the women, from their wives, no amount of moralizing from the church, none of that changed the attitudes or the behaviors of these plantation class owners. Just like now, I mean, you got the Me Too movement.
Right.
You have all of this stuff where it's all about moralizing about what Kavanaugh done or alleged to have done. And but it's not changing anybody's behavior.
Nope.
You know, it's like, you know, that Rodney Dangerfield, Back to School, and when he goes and see Dean Martin, the dean of the school, and you know, there's some discrepancies about, you know, his background, Rodney Dangerfield's background, because he rubs, you know, shoulders with mobsters and all that. And all Rodney did was just throw the man a check and gave him some half-baked explanation, and Dean Martin said, well, I'm satisfied.
Exactly.
You know, because in the end, it's all about the check. Man.
It's all it is all about the check. Yep. And that is true with some women, too. Our dog is in the background mad because we're talking to you, so he's going to start tearing up stuff. So if you hear something in the background, see stuff crashing around, that's just Brewski being mad. So completely ignore that dog. But I mean, so we've got to let these women go. We really just have to cut bait with these women who are supporting these men. If we really believe that these folks needed the FBI to investigate these additional allegations, when we have found that the FBI has finished their investigation, the Congress gave them a week. Trump claimed he gave them a week. They finished the investigation today. Or yesterday, so they took like 3-4 days
after Trump limited what they could investigate.
And honestly, they didn't interview Kavanaugh or Blasey Ford or Dr. Blasey Ford. Not only did they not interview those two people, they didn't interview any of the people who have come out with additional accusations against Kavanaugh. Not only that, they didn't interview any of the people who contacted the FBI with corroborating stories about any of it. They didn't interview. I mean, so this whole thing, like I said a couple of weeks ago, when this confirmation process started with Brett Kavanaugh and questions were raised initially on the Critical Hour, Dr. Wilmer Leon's show, I said a couple of weeks ago that the Republicans were not going to take this seriously. I said it, I meant it, and I knew they weren't going to take this seriously.
That's right.
And that it's borne out now. That they really, all of this was just a sham. These people are going to vote for this man. I believe he is going to be confirmed as a Supreme Court justice.
And you know, and it's funny that you say that because I'm of the opinion too. I agree with you. I think that we're looking at confirmation. I think that everything else before, even down with Senator Jeff Flake, and you know, I'm with you. You're almost convincing me that I should be, you know, and all this other kind of stuff. And all of it is just to manipulate the American people. To manipulate the American people that, you know, we're not total assholes. I mean, you know,
right. We have some humanity.
Yeah. I mean, we have some humanity, and you know, we're gonna see if this chick's story, you know, and I'm saying this in not in a disrespectful term, but this is their attitude.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, we're going to see if what this chick's saying is telling the truth. You know, and you know, but we're not really, you know. And then I think that another thing that really disgusted me, I don't know who was the senator, but this guy, I don't know, it was McConnell, I can't remember, but who went out there and was just so impassioned about what was happening to Kavanaugh.
Right.
You know, I don't believe, and this is not his words, y'all. It's Luqman Virgin's I don't believe that they brought this slut up here down to the hill to try to, you know, ruin a good man's name. A man who just, you know, trying to keep a man off the Supreme Court. She knew she had more than one beer and she was around. She, you know, and I heard this guy on the radio, and I said, man, these people have no shame. I said, this woman had to come out. She was living her life as normal as can be, and she didn't have to. She didn't gain. And we spoke about this last week, but let's get the points back out on the table,
right?
Because you know she could have just basically stayed, you know, to the rest of us unknown.
Yeah,
you know, unknown.
Yeah.
But you know, but she risked death threats to her family. Things aren't going to really be the same with her because, you know, we know how people in power like to punish folks, you know, that step out of line.
That's right.
And she understood that too. And I think that none of that was given consideration when this senator, I think it was McConnell, I can't remember.
No, it was Lindsey Graham, Uncle Brother over on
Thank
UT
you,
responded.
thank you,
Yep,
thank you, Uncle Brother.
It was Lindsey Graham.
So Lindsey Graham,
Graham.
right. So Lindsey Cracker Graham Cracker, right?
How could you call me a cracker?
No, Lindsey Graham Cracker.
Wait a minute. I oppose such mischaracterization, scandalous mischaracterization of my persona.
I mean, I'm listening to this guy, and I said, wow. I said, it hasn't even been any type. I mean, the hearings are still going on. And I said, and it just, I mean, just the oh man, it's and then Trump gets up there, and what you saw was old ass frat boys all over again.
Oh yes,
old ass frat boys all over again. That's what you saw.
That's exactly what the. Listen, aside from this being another one of those perfect examples of America showing you exactly what black people and other oppressed people have always told you America really, really is. These are the people who really, really do run this country. And they have always run this country, and they have always been this way. I'm so sorry that y'all are newly shocked by this new low in American political history. But we've been this low before, just didn't affect you. Now it is, and you don't know what to do. But this is also exactly like you said. This is the old Ivy League frat boy network, and it doesn't even have to be Ivy League, right? No, it doesn't have to be because Ivy League. We've seen pictures.
Donald Trump went to with some military academy.
I think before he went to Wharton, I think maybe, but we've seen pictures on non-Ivy League college campuses of mostly white fraternities hanging despicable signs out about their intentions to abuse and assault drunk girls or girls in general who come to their frat parties. This kind
Jackie,
of...
I mean, forgive me for interrupting, but come on. One of the biggest one of the biggest sellers every year was Girls Going Wild.
Oh my God, I completely forgot about that.
Girls Going Wild. I mean, who don't remember that?
Forgot about that.
Right. So I mean, so what is so new about that?
There's nothing new about this, but okay. As bad as Kavanaugh is, I mean, he's a horrible. Not only is he a terrible nominee for Supreme Court justice, he shouldn't have been confirmed as a judge on anybody's court because of the fact that he already lied under oath about the Manuel Miranda emails. Remember, we talked about that last week. Go back and I think I still got the links up there from that issue. So all of these people who said that they're going to vote for this man for the Supreme Court, they knew about that. They knew that he lied under oath about that, not just now, but when he was confirmed for the D.C. Circuit Court as a federal judge. They knew about that, and they still wanted to vote for this guy. These people are telling you that they don't care about you. I have no idea why people made Jeff Flake a hero when Jeff Flake knew about this man's record of lying under oath, and he was going to vote for him anyway. You were hoping that Senator Collins, Susan Collins, was going to grow a conscience after she knew about this man lying under oath for the job as a federal judge, and she was going to vote for him anyway. I mean, they're acting as if this is some type of special circumstance where he is entitled to be a Supreme Court justice. This is a job interview. I have a clearance for my job that's not anywhere near what his clearance is. There is no way I could get any job with a security clearance that means anything, that's going to get me any real money, if somebody accused me of physically assaulting somebody else.
But you know what the real anger is that you see played out with Lindsey Graham, played out with Kavanaugh and all these people. Kavanaugh, the only thing that Kavanaugh always knew was winning. They spoke to one of his classmates, and one of his classmates probably would have been friends with me than with Kavanaugh because of the type of circles that I hung around in. But he even said that he wasn't part of the Kavanaugh circle, but he knew about him. He said you couldn't help but know about Kavanaugh because he was, he was the jock. He was,
right.
And he was part of the popular crowd, and he was this and that. And so coming up even through college and everything, this guy, all he known was winning.
That's right.
So this was supposed to be the creme de la creme, as they say.
Oh, yeah.
Now Supreme Court justice, what they say he used to brag about. So now, these women get in the way, and thank you, Angie Roten, for reminding us that there was also another woman that paved the road for Dr. Ford. And but anyway.
And her name was?
Well, I got to scroll back here. But, Tarana Burke.
Right, because remember, Tarana Burke actually started the Me Too movement.
Right.
Let's be clear about that.
Right.
All of this Me Too stuff was popularized off of the work of a black woman working among black people and poor people in a community where people ignored those voices from those women who were survivors of sexual assault. So Me Too, it has been co-opted, or it has been presented as a white woman's movement, but it's not.
Well, and again, as we're always reminded by a lot of our elders, as I'm always reminded by people, in the revolutionary movement, that white women as a group would never know the sexual assault that have been suffered by black women. All you got to do is just, you look at black people in the United States and see how many different hues we come in. Right. Go down to Brazil and see that, and go all over where Europeans have invaded and settled, and you will find that, especially amongst the African populations, the different variations. So so there was a lot of raping going on when it came between with black women. So and that's often overlooked, and it shouldn't be overlooked. It shouldn't be overlooked because the greatest mass, I hate to say this, but the greatest criminal rape, I should say. If there's any, was white men, European white men, and black women, and black, and so this wasn't you can't justify this, you can't romanticize it.
Right.
You can't sit up there and say that Sally Hemings at 12 years old knew that she loved a 70-year-old Thomas Jefferson.
She was Thomas Jefferson's lover. They loved each other.
As much as you try to justify that, but nah, these were women that had that didn't have power. And so and so that because rape is about power. It's not about sex. It's about power. But anyway, but that I'm glad that we were reminded of that, and understand where the roots of this do go back to. Right. So we're appreciative of that. But anyway, that's the real thing. And all of these the Lindsey Grahams and all of them, they seen this as a how dare you.
Right.
You know what I mean? You know, here it is, you know, and that's the thing that I think Kavanaugh was crying and sniffing and stuff about, is the fact that this was not supposed to be. You know, all of these things, like with the Harvey Weinsteins and all them, it's like, you know, this just comes with what's owed me.
Right. Right. It's this you want to talk about an entitlement mentality. The Republican, that's ironic, right? The Republicans are always talking about entitlements, and they're always looking at black people in particular, or immigrants, especially immigrants from Latin American countries and immigrants and African immigrants, as being entitled. But there is no more entitled group of people in this country, probably not on the face of the earth, than white men. Because white men really do believe that they deserve whatever they want. They believe that they deserve to get and to have whatever it is they want. And I'm telling you, white women hitch on to that wagon because they know, because history has proven, that if they just hitch on to that wagon and turn a blind eye to the human rights abuses and the sexual abuses and the abuses of power that white men commit, they'll get some of that stuff. And
you know, it's funny you mentioned that. Just as a side note, there were some of our sisters who believed that they could do that too. You know, and all of this stuff, you know, get yourself a white man and all this other kind of stuff.
Lord have mercy.
And you know, and find out that the racial dynamics in this country is a lot more complex. You know, it's one thing for a white woman to marry a judge and or a white woman to marry and all this other kind of stuff, but it's something else for a black woman to do that and think that, you know, the same things are going to come. Right. The racial dynamics in this country just don't allow that to happen. Maybe one or two might have it, but you know, all of this, you know. Anyway, I digress. But I say this though, the fact that the way that white supremacy works is the fact that in spite of the failings in this man, now mind you, now no man of color could have got away with that.
Okay.
Now that's the thing. Now no man of color could got away with that. When they couldn't find anything on Barack Obama, they had to make stuff up. He's a Muslim.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
He wasn't born in this country.
He wasn't born in this country. When they couldn't find him, there was no way that any black, Hispanic, Asian man, anybody who was not a white male would have even seen a second day of hearings.
I mean, and let's be clear on this, right? Let's be clear on this, because we're not saying that we're, you know, supportive of Barack Obama and his policies, but now we're talking about the way that man was treated in this system of white supremacy. Now that's a different thing. We talk about his policies plenty, and his messiness in regard to black people.
Right.
But look, let's be honest now. You're absolutely right. I mean, there could never have been a scandal where somebody accused Barack Obama of even a white woman accusing him of even looking at them in the wrong way. But we don't even have to imagine that, because back in the 90s, see, we think that this current scandal with Brett Kavanaugh in these messy confirmation hearings is like the epitome of what's wrong with this country and the Supreme Court. No, it's not. Because, see, this isn't the first time the Supreme Court has dealt with the issue of sexual harassment with its nominees. Because Anita Hill, another black woman, who paved the way for opening up the discussion about sexual harassment in the workplace. Anita Hill came forward to testify against Clarence Thomas when he was nominated as a Supreme Court justice. And Democrats got problems. This whole Kavanaugh thing just exposes so much of what is wrong with our political system, just the foundations of it from the ground up in so many different ways. But see, back in the day, it was the Democrats who were in charge of the Senate. They had control of the Senate. So they
Uncle Joe
Biden, who treated Anita Hill like garbage and practically apologized to then Supreme Court nominee Clarence Thomas for having to put him through the indignity of going through what Thomas called at the time infamously a high-tech lynching. Now, the difference between the way Thomas responded and the way Kavanaugh responded, same scenario, same job interview for the same job, was that, see, Clarence Thomas, just like you said, even though he was the poster child for the conservatives, for the Republican Party, even though he was a very powerful black man, he knew he couldn't fly off the handle like some crazy person.
That's right.
And because if he had shown the kind of anger, just unbridled, emotionally unhinged, violent anger that Kavanaugh displayed in his hearings, Clarence Thomas would not be a Supreme Court justice.
All of a sudden now, all them white folks, their mind would have went back to Birth of a Nation. You know what I mean?
And they would have seen Clarence Thomas as just another angry black man.
Angry black man.
But he played the dignified Negro.
That's right. That's right.
And the dignified Negro let the dignified old boys network of a bunch of white men rake that black woman over the coals. And now, of course, that's coming back to bite Joe Biden, and I'm glad it is, because it needs to.
Well, Dianne
bite
Feinstein too, because she was around.
Oh, that's right, because there are 3 senators
Yeah.
who are involved in these hearings now, who were involved in these in those
Right.
in the Clarence Thomas
And the difference
hearings.
between Anita Hill and you know, see, there's so much in this, and I'm sorry, folks, but the difference between Anita Hill and Dr. Ford, the way that they're both being treated. I remember during that time when Anita Hill was testifying, and she was called some horrible names.
Oh my God!
And this is why I need to call black men out.
Come on,
because you know, we've been talking about white men, but when Anita Hill was coming along, a lot of black men was calling Anita Hill everything but the child of God, because there's this thing that, you know, how dare, now we didn't know what Clarence Thomas would turn out to be on the Supreme Court, but you know, but it shouldn't matter whether you know what he was going to turn out to be. The thing of it is that there's a different cultural dynamics. For those of you who don't know about this, in the black community, black women have, you know, you talk about white women hitching their wagon to white men and this thing. Well, black women have a different cultural dynamic. Black women act as shields.
Oh man.
So where white women may hitch wagons, black women put up shields. And what those shields is to protect us.
Just real quick, we're not going to talk very much about that tonight, but that explains some of our response to Bill Cosby.
Right. Yep.
Okay, so I'm hoping you understand that. All right? So keep going. Keep going.
So when Anita Hill was doing her thing, the reason why I'm calling the black men out, because black men expected for her to be that shield. You got a black man that's in the position that he's in.
Right.
We need to protect him. How dare you? And when they say dare you, because we know, you know how we do things in our culture, you know, or what we have, or how we've been forced to do things in our culture. Let's put it that way.
Right.
How we've been forced to do things in our culture in order to allow us to survive. So why are you going against the grain, girl, and allowing these white folks to come after Clarence like that?
Right. And that's why he used that phrase, high-tech lynching. Because he understood. Now understand, this was before social media existed. Right? Because I've seen some people online saying, well, where was the Me Too movement, #MeToo, during Anita Hill? Well, nobody could do a hashtag then because Twitter didn't exist.
Right.
Nobody could do...
half of us didn't even know what a hashtag was. We used to call it pound.
Well, yeah, because it was the pound number on the... It was a pound button on the phone.
Right.
That's what... There was no such thing as a hashtag. Yeah. Right? So, and those of you who have been born since then... You don't know what the pound is on the phone. You have no idea that it's the same thing as a hashtag.
To you, yeah.
There you go. So, I mean, there were people who understood that they were suspicious of Thomas's politics because he was a conservative, right? But at the same time, this was a black man being appointed to sit on the highest court in the land, like other outside of the presidency. That's like the biggest old boys network,
right? And then we have to remember that this was taking place not soon after Thurgood Marshall's death.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
We just wanted one of us up there.
We just wanted one of us up there again. Not this, like you said, this brings up so much stuff. Where as a people, sometimes we pay too much attention to personality and symbolism and not enough attention to details and policy.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Clarence Thomas was not the same kind of black man as Thurgood Marshall. Not at all. But the symbolism was important for some people. Yes. It was very important. And I understand that. But at the same time, it was another one of those messy situations where the more, and I remember thinking, I don't know, Anita, come on, are you really? But then when I listened to her testimony, I kind of thought I had to do that reasoning in my own head. Mm-hmm. What does she benefit? What is she going to get from coming forward and exposing herself to all this scrutiny? She is not personally going to get anything but this horrible scrutiny, and this is going to dog her for the rest of her life. So maybe,
and it's going to deny a black man an important job.
But that was the thing. It's like maybe her purpose is not to take down a black man. Maybe her purpose as a black woman is to save us from this particular black man. So when I was listening to Anita Hill's, watching, because it was on C-SPAN, and also this was before, like, CNN, so C-SPAN was all you got. So I'm sitting there watching C-SPAN, watching Anita Hill testify, watching Democrats treat this woman like garbage, watching this black man, who I was already suspicious of his politics, say that this black woman was complicit in his high-tech lynching.
That's what he said.
And I understood, no, there's some other stuff going on here where this black man believes that because he is the mascot for these white folks, that he's not black like me. He's not black like Anita. That's why he felt like he could treat her like he did. So the issue is not how bad Kavanaugh is. That's not the issue. He's horrible. He shouldn't be confirmed as a Supreme Court justice. He probably will be. We'd love to be wrong. We don't have a problem being wrong. We'd love to be wrong in this case. But understand that if Kavanaugh is not appointed, then the woman who is the next choice for the Republicans, as far as policy is concerned, just as bad. Just as bad. So the GOP wins, even if Kavanaugh isn't confirmed.
And I really got to say this, just to us so-called progressives who always believe we're the smartest people in the room. Mm-hmm. Now the thing of it, and I'm saying this because I was at work one day, and we're going to talk about this on another show about Trump doing another smoke and mirror with NAFTA.
Oh my God!
But it's a smoke and mirrors. I mean, when you really look at the agreement, that's the supposed agreement that took place between Canada and Mexico and the United States, which is supposed to replace NAFTA. It's smoke and mirrors. But at the same time, to those out there who supported this man, one thing about and this is the reason why we progressives, we need to kind of like. You used to always say this. You said we need to stop thinking that these people are stupid, and we need this, and sometimes believing ourselves to be the cleverest person in the room can leave us vulnerable. Because what's happening is that we look at the Trump supporters, and come on, y'all, don't act like it, but a lot of us, not all of us, but a lot of us look at them and be like, oh man, they're just ignorant, they're just this, they're just that, but they're getting their agenda. They're getting what's going. They have the Supreme Court. Whether this guy Kavanaugh gets confirmed or not, like you said, Trump got another pick.
That's right.
Somebody's going on that Supreme Court that Donald Trump's going to choose.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So we're still going to end up with one of the most conservative Supreme Courts we didn't have probably since Reconstruction. Yeah. I mean, and the conservative or far right wing agenda is going to be implemented. We're seeing this more and more, and so every now and then the wealthy elite. And we're going to get to the story you wanted to talk about, Jackie. The wealthy elite, every now and then, as they've done throughout history, when they see that they're building up pressure,
come
they release the valve a little bit.
Oh, just let me, yeah.
Yep.
Look, all of this, all of these news stories, that they tie together everything that we're talking about tonight. But I want to complete your thought about having the most conservative Supreme Court since probably Reconstruction. Here's the real problem with the Supreme Court. Not the bad nominees. Not that. It's not the horrible people they put. No, it's the fact that Supreme Court justices in the United States of America serve for life.
Yep, that's it.
They serve until literally they drop dead on the court, or until they have some humanity and they realize, I am too old to keep doing this, I'm going to retire. Both of those propositions are a bad deal for the United States. And this is what I talked about briefly. It's a 3-minute clip. We're going to throw it up on both of the all of the platforms on the show on RT. The problem with the Supreme Court is the way we structure the Supreme Court is archaic in this country. It's outdated and it's old. And most other countries in the world don't do this way. They don't have people who serve on their Supreme Courts. They don't all call them Supreme Courts. Some countries call them high courts or whatever. But they don't have people serving like from the time they're appointed until they die or retire.
Well, and this is very good reason. These are countries that have histories of monarchies.
Exactly. And they
that
don't.
Wasn't a good thing.
And then you've got people who are on the court interpreting law and basically affecting definitely affecting the lives of everybody in the country for the rest of their life, and nobody can really remove them. That's royalty. That's exactly how royalty operates.
Yep.
Now, that's ironic that we would do that in this country, since we claim we fought a war of quote-unquote independence because we didn't want to be ruled by a monarchy, but we basically have a monarchy of our court system.
No, they fought a war of independence so they can keep their slaves.
That's what it really was. That's what it really was, because the people that they, and I'm not going to say we, because we didn't get our freedom from that war.
No.
That was not a war of independence for us. But the people who fought that war fought against the country that had already abolished slavery.
Right, or was moving towards
I'm sorry, yeah, that's right. They were moving toward abolishing slavery, so they got tired of hearing those people tell them, well, I mean, how are you going to tell us that you're not going to pay us taxes? You still have slaves. We're working on not having slaves.
Right.
Come on now. So we basically have a monarchy on our Supreme Court. It doesn't matter that it's male and female justices. These people are there for the rest of their lives. That's a problem right there, because it goes against what, these are the same people who are, the same people who are supportive of the Supreme Court system are the people who are also always quoting the Founding Fathers and what the Founding Fathers wanted and their vision for this country. But the Founding Fathers never envisioned that the Constitution would be a static thing. And one of them actually said, I think more than one actually said, we need to review this Constitution probably every couple of generations. Why? Because societies change. Mores change. Standards and practices change. We can't have a country run 200 years in the future by a document that was written in 1776.
Exactly. Yep.
The Founding Fathers said this, but we have Supreme Court justices who are interpreting law from a document in 1776 to people who live in a society in 2018 who have been on this court and they're 87 years old and they're out of touch with all of us. That's a problem. The other problem is the situation, the way we structure the Supreme Court was created by the retirement of Justice Anthony Kennedy.
Right.
This is another reason why we need not just a retirement age for Supreme Court justices. They need to be kicked off that job at a certain age. But I think we need to go further and have term limits for Supreme Court justices.
And I think that Supreme Court justices shouldn't be appointed by the president. I think they should be elected by the people.
That's the third issue. But the problem that Anthony Kennedy's retirement created was that he waited until a Republican was president before he decided to retire so that he could give the GOP the Supreme Court nomination to replace him. That he did that. The man said that he wanted to be succeeded by a Republican. He made that happen. Term limits that are set for a specific amount of years and are implemented regardless of who is in office will eliminate Supreme Court justices having that power.
Right.
Because that absolutely is exercising an extreme level of power in favor of one political party. And I agree with you as far as Supreme Court nominees are concerned. They should not be selected by the president. There are some states, Supreme Court justices and lower court justices are elected. I actually think that needs to be across the board in every state. All judges need to be elected.
Because it makes sense. I mean, it's like, forget about what all of the stuff that they tell us in school about how stuff supposed to work. How am I going to go against the dude that gave me my job?
Well, exactly.
You know what I mean? So the guy that appoints me, he has something that he wants done. And so, no matter what, I'm going to go against that guy. So this political appointment stuff is out of the Roman Empire. It was, other societies did it, but it's basically a copy from Rome. And this is, where the emperor used to say, hey, you're this now. And, so that stuff needs to end in a modern democracy, in a so-called modern democracy. But then again, we got to understand it's a republic.
Right.
But again, we need to understand that in a modern civilized society, the emperor doesn't get to appoint anyone.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? This has to be by the people, which is why you and I, we support those type of programs that do that in other countries.
Yeah, I mean, listen, because we're human beings and we're going to have some messed up ideology, we're never going to have a perfect system because it's run by humans. And we're never going to have perfect justices, but that's not the point. Perfection is not the point. Justice is, though. And as long as we continue to have a Supreme Court that's interpreting federal law for everybody in this country by a bunch of people who can never who are basically royalty.
Right.
That they're legal royalty almost. That they're not going to rule for us. That there are always going to be people in political power, presidents, who make sure that they pack that court with whoever they want. The Republicans complained about activist justices, under Obama for years. They're talking about, they need to get rid of Obama because he's going to appoint a bunch of Democratic activist judges, only to turn around and do the exact thing.
But this is where they got the smart people, us, the left, on the ropes. Because because what happens is we're so smart that we're always reactionary.
Exactly.
So what they do is they sit up there like what poor brother Ben Jealous. All Larry Hogan had to do was say he's a socialist. I ain't no fucking socialist. Yep. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But that's how we've been responding to them, like Ben Jealous. Yep. So then they get up there and say, Obama's a Muslim. The hell he ain't. But you know what? What if he was? You know what I mean? And it's like, that's not true. His birth certificate's here. Instead of responding to the question is, well, we are a nation of immigrants and enslaved people and descendants of enslaved people. And everybody from all around the world came here. Mm-hmm. So what if he was a Muslim?
Right. Where are your parents from?
Yeah.
Where are your great-great-great-parents from?
But to accuse him of being a Muslim as if being a Muslim is something wrong with that.
Exactly.
But we don't respond that way.
Right.
No, we be like, no, he's not. We know where he was born. His mother's from the, And so, we're the smartest people in the room, but yet, all they got to do is sit here with the straw out their mouth and say, you're a communist. The hell I am.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This thing,
Yeah.
So we need to on the left, and I think that's what, and I think we're, and let me give us hope, because I really believe this. I think there are those in our camp who's starting to get it.
I think so too.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
There are those in
too.
our camp that's starting to get it and realize that our tactics have to be different. It can't always be. First of all, we understood. A lot of us are starting to understand that in dealing with these people, we love you, Michelle, but sometimes you got to go low.
Yeah.
That's number one.
Yeah.
Some of us understand. Even, and why do you always tie me into the history? But I love it.
Because you're so great at it.
But even in Germany during the Nazi period, right? Or when the Nazi parties and stuff. But it wasn't just the Nazi party. The politics in Germany at the time, every political group in Germany, the communists, the socialists, the Democrats, the Nazis, everybody had those dudes. That had them dudes that was, how they say, that was about it.
Yeah, it was about that life.
Yeah. You had your nerds. The nerds was the ones that was actually running for office, and you had those ones that was supposed to be the front of the political group. They were
the face of the party.
Yeah, they were the suit and tie people. But then you had them dudes, you know what I mean, that rode around in the wagon. And they would, and like I said, they was about that life. They was about that life. The communists, all of them had that. And what it was them saying, like, look, politics is a blood sport. So there are some of us who are starting to see that, you need that person on the left that's gonna get down and dirty.
You need Antifa.
Right.
We need Antifa.
There you go.
We need Black Lives Matter. We need those people. Because, like we have said before, listen, these folks, the Lindsey Grahams and the Chuck Grassleys and the GOP in Congress, they're the suit and tie wing of the torch carrying Richard Spencer thugs who showed up in Charlottesville. They're the same people. They're the same group of people. So we need to understand that what we are dealing with here, it's not just Kavanaugh. It's not just this particular Congress. It's not just this particular president. It's the whole damn system. The whole damn system is antiquated, outdated, corrupt, built on ideals that were established by old, rich, landowning white men that they never intended to let everybody else benefit from or fully participate in. And now these people, they have been working on getting this administration and this particular kind of court, Supreme Court, in place for decades, like you said, centuries since Reconstruction. We have to stop being reactionary because these people, they've been playing chess the whole time. So we've taken up the whole first hour with Kavanaugh. Because there's so much stuff, but we're not going to talk about him anymore because there's actually other stuff that's connected to the Supreme Court and why the way that's set up matters that we need to talk about. Some other stuff that you might not think is connected, so let's take a little break. Y'all, we'll be back in about 3 minutes.
And what's coming up is that, and we're going to talk about Laquan McDonald's case in Chicago.
We are back.
Yep.
We are back live.
So anyway, we're gonna come back to the Supreme Court thing, but I gotta go to Chicago.
Yeah, because this is a really, really important case. If you remember, Laquan McDonald was shot and murdered by Chicago police.
Was it Van Dyke?
What's his name? Let's see. Let's pull up this article. Oops. There we go. Right now in Chicago, the trial of Laquan McDonald's murderer is going on, and Chicago is on edge because Chicago's waiting for a verdict from the jury. This was from CNN at 3:53 today. So as of the end of today, there was no verdict from, and I didn't expect there to be one because they ended deliberations just today. And so the jury has the case. Laquan McDonald was murdered almost 4 years ago, 17 years old, shot 16 times by police officer Jason Van Dyke. The city of Chicago was found to have, certain officials in the city of Chicago, including Rahm Emanuel, was found to have conspired to cover up the evidence, specifically the videotape of the shooting of Laquan McDonald. And this case is why Rahm Emanuel decided not to run again. This one case.
I figured that.
Aside from his horrendous record as mayor, crapping on the poor people in Chicago, this cover-up from his administration of this case guaranteed that there was no way he could win another term in Chicago. So, the Chicago Police Department has a comprehensive operating plan to ensure public safety in all our neighborhoods, blah, 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 a bunch of lies. But Van Dyke is the first Chicago police officer to be charged with first-degree murder since 1980.
So that shows you that, and trust me, there's been a lot of police killing of black people in between that time.
Yeah, and not just a lot of police killing of black people. Let's make it clear what kind of relationship Chicago has with the police department. If you remember, and maybe you don't because it was a while ago, there was a story that was broke by the Guardian newspaper about a black site interrogation location that was found to exist in Chicago. It was called Holman Square, where for 10 years, former police chief, now I can't remember his name, but I think he's since died.
Well, but he got a chance to retire before benefits and everything.
Right. I can't remember the former police chief's name, but he was notorious. He was notorious for having his police department abuse and torture and even murder black and Latino people in poor neighborhoods in Chicago. We'll give you a link to that story.
But let's make that even more specific. Black and Latino American citizens.
Exactly. Thank you.
You know, because when we say these things, like, you know, they were doing to black people and this thing, no, they were doing this to American citizens.
Right.
You
right.
know, the ones that, you know, that they're supposed to protect. Right.
So we're talking about the torture of American citizens, the murder, the denial of due process and the violation of human and civil rights of American citizens in an American city that it went on for decades, that had to be exposed by a foreign newspaper. But the people of Chicago have known that this was going on for forever. And this is the relationship that people of Chicago have had with the Chicago police.
Right, that's right.
Just like the people in Philly had a horrible relationship with the Philly police because of John Burge and his racist, openly racist behavior and running of the Philly Police Department. Just like a lot of black neighborhoods and a lot of black cities in this country have a problematic relationship with the police departments in their neighborhoods because of racism that leads to a police abuse in these neighborhoods. So this case, you think that Jason Van Dyke is going to be convicted?
You know, I think he's going to be convicted, and I think what's going to do him in is the tape. I think the videotape. Now, before I get to that, he tried. They always talk about the race card. Mm-hmm. Well, he played the race card too in his testimony, and the same old racist code words to describe McDonald. First of all, here's a cop, and Van Dyke's no little guy. Mm-hmm. Given all of the equipment by the state to carry out his duties. So you're talking about a 17-year-old kid that was high on whatever.
Right.
Mixed with psychotropic drugs because he has mental issues, as does most people living in oppressed society.
Right.
And we'll talk about that too. The reason I believe that there's a spike in murders in D.C. That's starting to happen now.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, I was coming home from work yesterday.
Yeah, the other day.
And the cops was chasing somebody that just shot somebody. But anyway, a lot of that is unaddressed trauma. Unaddressed trauma. And we're going to talk about that later on. You know, people like Rahm Emanuel and all the elites get up there. The same elites who are in power who do nothing about this.
Right.
But they sit up there and talk about, well, you know, it's your culture, it's this. No, it's not. It's trauma that is unaddressed. You know, soldiers of war come home and they are not even allowed to mingle with people until they go through certain things to deal with their mental state.
Right.
This has
they used to.
Well, they're used to, but this has never been done for black people. You have the greatest trauma done to humans in the history of humankind, which is the Atlantic slave trade. No disrespect to the Holocaust and nobody else, but this Holocaust was worse than theirs. And the fact remains that trauma was never addressed.
Right.
You know, so now what do you think is going to happen? Generations upon generations upon generations of trauma being passed down. There has to be a boiling point. So when you talk about, oh, well, why are y'all killing each other? Why you know that? Well, it's, you know, you're seeing it on the surface. You see it as two black people killing each other. That's the surface stuff. You know, it has nothing to do with that skin color. He's not being killed because he's black.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's not being killed because the other person hate black people.
Right.
You know what I mean? No. There's deeper systemic issues that's going within when you have a people that you've traumatized for generations and generations and still refuse not to do nothing. We are dealing with a community that don't even know, and we talk about the wealth gap all the time. We're dealing with young people, because let's face this now. We're dealing with young, and I'm bringing this up because it explains Laquan McDonald. This is why. Because we're dealing with young people who, you know, you think they don't pay attention. But you're dealing with young people who see no future for themselves in this land. You know, you're seeing young people who realize that the game is rigged and they haven't been prepared for it. They haven't even been taught how to play this game.
Wow.
And every time they attempt to play it in the way that they think is going to be successful, they wind up losing. So, you know, it's as horrifying as it is for me to hear some of our young men and women say, I don't expect to live to 30. Right. Or I don't expect to live to 25. Man, if I make it to 25, I'm good. It saddens me, but I understand it too. Because they look around and they see, like in D.C. and other places, and they look around and they see all this development around them. They know they're being replaced. They know that there's no spot for them.
Right.
And so what does that do? It causes a rage in you. There's a rage when you realize that you're not wanted, you're not needed, you're not loved, you're not protected. The only thing you're seen as is a problem. And so what happens is you internalize that. You know, what does a child do who feels that their parent don't love them?
They act out.
They either run away if they can, or they act out, or they do something to gain the attention of that parent.
Right.
Whether it's good or bad, just so that parent. But we got young people who realize that there's no future for them. And so when you see these shootings and stuff, it's not the fact that, you know, oh, I can't stand that person because they're black. That's what the press tell them. That's what the press tells us. That's what the racialized, the racial socialization that we have about each other, because we don't live around each other. So we pick this stuff up and, oh, well, see, look, you know, they hate each other too. Why are they killing each other? It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with unaddressed trauma that is kind of passed down. We talk about a wealth gap that, with one example of Boston, Massachusetts.
Oh my God.
Of white families having $247,000 in wealth.
In median wealth.
In median wealth, and black families having $8.
$8.
Now you think that those kids don't wake up and look at the world around them, as kids often do, as we often did, as kids before us often did, as my parents when they were kids often did? You think that they don't look around and be like, my mother gets up, man, to catch that bus 4 o'clock in the morning and work 3-4 jobs, you know, or my dad, he gets up 4 o'clock in the morning and drive them damn trucks, and he comes home, he's always tired, he's this and that. Why are we always struggling?
Right.
You know, why is it that we can't have this? Why is it that we can't have that? Is it, you know, and then the thing they hold is, oh, well, you can have this if you work hard enough. I don't know no harder working people than my parents. Why we ain't got that still?
Right. And
so what happens is the fact that all of this stuff, they see that America is nothing but a cardboard box propped up by sticks. That's what the American dream is. This is what that's all it is to them. It's something, you know, and it's something they don't have to take. So we'll get so Laquan McDonald. So it doesn't really surprise me, man, when I see young people out here on the K2. Yeah. When I see the young people out there, because Laquan McDonald was talking to himself. And I seen that when I was in my truck the other day, because I shared it with you, Jackie.
Yeah.
When a young man, could have been no older than about 20 years old, cut in front of my truck, and he was playing with his head. He was talking to himself. And people were laughing. How many times have we seen young women in our neighborhood walk around with no clothes on?
Yeah, we've seen that a couple of times.
Right. Now people laugh and say, oh man, look at that. But the thing of it is man, that you got some people are strong enough to be able to navigate this thing.
But a lot of us
lot of us have just given up.
And a lot of our babies, a lot of our young people are dealing with generation after generation after generation of that trauma heaped upon each generation over and over and over again. And what does this have to do? Thank you so much, because that was beautiful.
This is the world Laquan McDonald comes from.
This is the world Laquan McDonald comes from. It's the world that these kids in our neighborhood, we live in the nicer part of the hood, not too far from here. It's not so great. And that's the world these kids see. This is a world that gentrification is expanding for these kids. They know, like you said, they know this development is not for them.
Yeah.
So if it were not for people in the community who knew Laquan McDonald, who understood that he had some issues, that he was not a violent threat, and if it were not for them pushing the city to release this video, then Jason Van Dyke would have never gone to trial. So now we're waiting. I can't even thank you enough for that, because I don't think I could have expressed the connection between this generational trauma that we experience, that we're passing on to our kids. And we're not doing it. This system is doing it to us. And this is where the Supreme Court and institutions like it come in, because they uphold these messed up laws.
They do.
They uphold these messed up laws that give police the uncurbed power to to search people's vehicles with nothing but a suspicion in their mind that they must be doing something wrong. You know, the Supreme Court upholds these laws that allows the police to steal your property, your money, if they think you have committed a crime. And you don't have to have gone to prison.
Right.
You don't have to have been convicted of a crime. They can take your money. If you have money on you, if you have something in your possession that they want, they can take it under asset forfeiture laws. The Supreme Court has upheld these unjust laws. And yes, white people are affected by these laws too, but disproportionately, the targets are black people, and especially poor black people. This is what we're living under. This is why this Supreme Court system and the way it is set up is so dangerous to allow us to continue the way it exists. Not who they appoint, but just we can't allow it to continue the way it exists. And I got to thank real quick DiCapriano and Shirley Vick over on YouTube for correcting. John Burge was the police chief in Chicago, and it was Frank Rizzo, who was the police chief in Philadelphia.
Right, Frank Rizzo.
And they took Rizzo's statue down. They actually had a statue of Frank Rizzo up in Philadelphia. They took that thing down. You know how they took the statue of Frank Rizzo down? A racist, murderous police chief in Philadelphia. You know how they took it down? Black folks. Black folks who were his victims and lived under his tyranny for years. Finally, a couple of black folks, Black Lives Matter, got brave and said, we got a problem with that.
Yep.
And all those other people in that community saw that other people, they didn't take it down, or they're trying to take it down. They're working on taking it down, but they are fighting to take that down. Because why do we continue to have statues of people who are murderers and tyrants? And we claim we're the land of the free. I mean, come on now. We got so much work to do, but we're waiting. We're waiting. Thank you, Shirley. This is why we appreciate our friends' comment.
But just to say that the reason why the original question you asked me about, why I think because they can't get around that part of the video that shows that he emptied his clip in that boy when he was already down. And and they got to get this right. See, we got to understand how the game is played. The verdict has been put off because they're trying to prepare for what they think will happen if they play this wrong.
Right.
This is giving them time. Why you think that the jury is sitting up there and saying, well, we just can't understand. We don't really know how to really judge this. They've already judged it. But see, the thing of it is that it's the powers that be that's like, hold up before you release it. It's not that they haven't that they don't have the verdict. They just haven't made it public.
You think?
I'm just saying. But I
think that makes sense.
You know, because why? What if they did go on the wrong side of this thing and they're not prepared?
True. And there's a big event this weekend in Chicago. I think it's some marathon. So, the last thing they want, because listen, if this verdict comes out and Jason Van Dyke is exonerated, they're going to have problems in Chicago. And you know what? They should. Chicago should be dismantled if this man who murdered Laquan McDonald, murdered this child on video, shot him in the street like a dog and kept shooting him when he was down.
But see, that's the thing. They wouldn't even do a dog like that.
Exactly. They'd have more sympathy for a dog than they did.
Mike Vick still can't get reservations at certain restaurants because of his role in dog fighting.
Exactly. He actually can't get a dog for his kids. He cannot have a dog as a pet because why? Because a judge ruled. This is why this is why this stuff is important. So we're watching the Laquan McDonald case, but you also mentioned another point. This is the last thing we're going to talk about. You also mentioned another point about the people in power. Every time they see people coming together to challenge the system, they throw a few crumbs at people to let off a little steam.
Well, this is the thing. We, to go along with that, there's a thing where now Jeff Bezos is trying to clean up his image. Mm-hmm. He's been aware of how he's been being viewed lately. Uh-huh. So now he's trying to clean up his image and say, well, all of my employees are going to have a minimum wage of $15 an hour, and all of but just my American employees, you know, and all of this other kind of stuff. Then he releases another thing where he says he's going to lead the fight to raise the federal minimum wage. He's going this and then a story comes out that says that even as the wages go up for Amazon workers, they lose their benefits. They're losing, workers lose bonuses, stock awards, and all this stuff. So the thing of it is that why is it that Bezos, why is it that when Trump signed the largest, I think it surpasses Obama now, as the largest transfer of wealth from the bottom to the top when Trump did that tax bill. Right, now when that went to law, I think it did surpass Obama. So why is it that the wealthy elite, that when they got that giveaway from the government, why wasn't the first thing they announced was, oh, well, we're going to share it? You know why? Because they look, we have not capitalized. These people are scared. These people are scared. Bezos he's seeing how he's being treated, and now all of a sudden he knows he has to give away something. Now this is the thing, but the difference is, people, we have not organized enough to put more heat under their ass because they've always been scared. They are the first ones surprised that they can get away with this.
Yep, and I'm so glad you said that they are scared, and we haven't been organized. And them doing stuff like this, Bezos doing stuff like this. Understand, this is not just Jeff Bezos being slimy and being a shady rich guy who's trying to hold on to his riches. Yeah, he is that. Yeah, he is. Yes, he is that.
We won't take that from him.
We're not gonna take that. He is that.
Right.
And look, I'm not gonna take anything away from workers who have fought for higher wages and who were in this fight before Bernie Sanders ever said anything.
Right, exactly.
Because I'm kind of tired of people giving Bernie Sanders the credit when really it was workers who have been pushing for this long before Sanders came along. I mean, we've been fighting against this low-ass minimum wage in this country for decades and decades and decades. Right. So workers and the labor movement and union workers have been fighting against companies to make them do this forever. So this was not a win for Bernie Sanders. Jeff Bezos ain't scared of Bernie Sanders.
Not at all.
Okay? And this is why. Because what Bezos did by taking away the benefits that really don't apply to every employee, right? Because these were benefits that only some employees were eligible to receive. And those employees were people who had worked at Amazon for a long time. Right? So they already had a salary of like $13, $14, a pay of $13, $14 an hour. And the benefits were incentive based. So it wasn't as if the stock options and the bonuses were a part of their, basic benefit package. They had to be selected for them. Right? It's like the Gladiator, it's the Hunger Games at Amazon, right? But here's the reason that Bezos doing this goes to your point of us not being organized to push these people to do better. And this is how this kind of stuff continues to keep us fractured. Workers whose pay was already above $15 an hour will get an hourly wage, according to two people familiar with the matter, who asked not to be identified, discussing the company's compensation practices. Some longtime workers expressed frustration that their raises are small compared with newly hired workers who will see hourly pay bumps of as much as 40%.
Wow.
That's the key right there. Yep. See, this is why you need to read articles. And I know, like we said before, people don't like read articles. They will see a headline and respond to the headline, but they won't read an article because the point of the article, the actual issue, is always right in the middle of the article.
Yep.
Almost always in the middle of the article. Let's talk about why this is such a problem. Because as a labor movement, as a worker movement, and yes, we're going to give you the link to that article too. As a worker movement in this country, we can't organize against the Jeff Bezos and the Walton families and the other massive corporations that underpay us and undervalue us for our labor when the company will pull a stunt like this and create division among the workers. So yeah, they raised the minimum wage, and that's for their company, for all of their domestic employees, and that's wonderful. But they also took away some of the incentive-based benefits that longer employed workers were eligible for. They didn't even automatically get these things. They didn't automatically get stock options. They were incentive-based. So Bezos has practically done exactly what you said they do. When they see the pressure, rising among the working class and the poor, the rich will sprinkle a few crumbs down on the people.
Yep.
Not only to release some of the pressure, because we happen with crumbs, and I'm not crapping on a $15 wage, because for somebody who makes $7.50 an hour, $15 an hour matters.
Oh yeah, that's a big bump.
It does matter. It matters.
Yeah.
It's below the standard of living everywhere in this country, just about, but it does matter. So it is important. It is a step toward better than what the federal minimum wage is now. But at the same time, we have to recognize these people are still playing chess. We cannot be satisfied with congratulating Bernie.
Right, exactly.
And using this, now they can't say that Bernie is ineffective but I don't care whether Bernie Sanders is ineffective or effective as a politician anymore. If Bernie Sanders is not calling out this that Jeff Bezos did, and creating this division among the workers in Amazon, creating this animosity between the veteran workers and the new workers, so that now Bezos doesn't have to worry about a union. He doesn't have to worry about his employees unionizing, because the old employees don't want to rock with the new employees, and the new employees can't get with the old employees because the older employees don't want to talk to them because they mad. And that's what Jeff Bezos did.
Right, and I'm gonna tell you how the leaders doing this nationwide. I just today just was released that the fastest growing group of workers in this country are age 55 and up.
Wow.
The fastest growing. How many of us have witnessed recently going to your favorite fast food restaurant and stuff, and you got somebody in there who should be home collecting their Social Security benefits after a lifetime of work, but they're back behind the counter. And all of them are not doing it because they want to stay active.
Right.
In fact, most of them are doing it because they have to do it. And so what does that tell you about a nation where our seniors can't even retire? Where our seniors can't even retire, that they have to continue to work, that we're in a society, and Russia's starting to see this too now, because Vladimir Putin, the only man in the government over there, because he does everything.
He does. Every time there's a conference, a summit, usually you see diplomats from other countries.
I would think, look, we are old enough to remember, and I'm going to get back to my point, but I got to mention this. We are old enough to remember the old Soviet Union.
Yeah.
The old Soviet Union. We remember Brezhnev with the two kisses in the back and the fur eyebrows
and the Brezhnev wave.
And we were around when there were a bunch of people in the Soviet government, Andrew Gromyko and Leonid Brezhnev and all of these guys, and everybody had a job to do.
Right.
Brezhnev, when you turned on the evening news, Brezhnev wasn't the only Russian official that you've seen. There was sometimes Andrew Gromyko, there sometimes be somebody else who was meeting with the Secretary of State, his equivalent of the Secretary.
Right.
But now there's Putin.
Now it's just Putin.
Now there's Putin, and it's like, and I say this to you because I said, every time I said Putin's everywhere. If he's not driving the truck across the bridge bare chested, he's up there. He's He was riding in a tank when they had the Russian maneuvers. He was doing that.
That's true.
Then he flew all the way down there to meet with Kim Jong-il. Then he did, and I said, man, dude, this guy has. Is there anyone else in the Russian government?
Well, I mean, there was one. There was one. It wasn't a person that challenged Putin's claims of superiority in Russia. You mentioned the bridge. Yeah. That he drove across to open. It was like the longest bridge in Russia that they built, something like that. And of course, Putin goes to the bridge
because he has to be there.
Because he has to christen everything because he's Putin and he must be involved. And he claimed that he was the first person to drive across the bridge. Well, technically, he was the first human to drive across the bridge, but the only entity in Russia that has been able to claim that it did something that Putin didn't do was a cat. There was this cat that was actually the first entity that walked all the way across this bridge in Russia. But other than the cat, I think it was Moishi the cat. Other than the cat that represented the opening of the bridge, in the longest bridge in Russia, Putin has been representing everything, and
it's him. And and I'm like, well, I mean, hey,
I don't understand why he's the only diplomat.
But it was just a question that I had to ask. But again, getting back to this thing with the seniors, but and that Putin was trying to do that over there, but the people are starting to push back on it. Nice people should push back on it. Who wants to be told by the government that everything that you're putting into this pot that you're hoping to get the day that you can finally take it easy from working all the time, and they just keep raising up, hoping that you die before you get the benefits? People should push against that, and it's a shame that in a nation that as rich as this should have to look at a growing class of workers age 55 and up. It goes back to your point with Amazon, how they create division. Yep. So now you got young people, they can't even get the McCrap job because grandmom got it.
Exactly. And then you've got the politicians, the same people who this is where it's connected. The same people who are appointing these justices to the Supreme Court, who interpret law, that decide that corporations are people.
Right.
The exact same august body of legislators make decisions that allow people like Jeff Bezos to continue to steal from workers and deny them the right to union representation, continuing the long tradition that was started, that was crystallized by Ronald Reagan, but it wasn't started by him, of union busting. And also demonizing the working class and the poor in this country. These are the same politicians who run on calling Social Security and unemployment benefits entitlements. We pay into that. That's our money. That's our money. But because we're so reactionary,
right,
we respond with anger and emotion instead of calling these people on their bluff. Well, if Social Security is an entitlement, then what do you call that health insurance that you get that we pay for, that we can't even get? So we really need to take a look at not just the flashy news stories of the day, right? Because this Kavanaugh thing, it has rightfully so brought the issue of sexual assault, sexual harassment, rape, what is consent, what is not consent, back to the forefront, especially when we're talking about the frat culture on our college campuses, especially when we're talking about what goes on in some of these elite schools. I lived in D.C. since I was 6 years old. I know all about Georgetown Prep. Know all about that little elite school in Holton Arms, I think was the girls' school. Know all about you want to talk about kids and drug use? Trust me when I tell you, nobody does more drugs than rich white kids. Nobody. No one.
Man, you think, look, I used to always say this. Even during the height of the crack epidemic, when you had the so-called kingpin, you think those guys made money off the nickel and dimes in the hood? No, man. That's why. No. You think they made money off of that? That's why when you watch a lot of these documentaries and movies and stuff, that's why they were so protective of their Wall Street trade.
Right.
That's why they wanted to get to know the people downtown.
Or the K Street trade, as it was in D.C.
Or, they always wanted to get to know, the people downtown, the suit and tie people, the ones that do their dirt on the weekends.
Right.
That was where their real money was coming from. It wasn't, the addict who sold their food stamps every first of the month, or
right.
or did the nickel and dime stuff. They they wasn't, so so.
I mean,
but they're still allowed to be confirmed to be Supreme Court justice.
Right. See, these kids who did more drugs than the two of us will probably ever see in our lives, drank more alcohol than the two of us have ever drank in our lives, and have done some things that neither one of us would ever consider doing, even when we were drunk or high.
That would go to the grave with us.
No, we're not telling you. Not even for full disclosure's sake. No. But see, we couldn't get a job. We would not be approved for a job as a security guard if our background was like Brett Kavanaugh's. But see, we didn't go to Georgetown Prep.
And we're also, and not only that we didn't go to Georgetown Prep, we're not protected by their wealth. That's the reason why people, all the time, we keep trying to make this clear. We need to take this wealth gap and point these kids, and it came out about Donald Trump today.
Yeah, that's a couple of days ago.
Right, a couple of days ago. Well, I heard it today. But the fact that, this whole, America is about myth building.
Oh my gosh, yes.
America is about myth building. The men who built America. I mean, the History Channel. The whole machinery of this country is myth building. So Donald Trump would sit up there and say, "Oh yeah, my father gave me a small loan and
of $1 million,
right, and I turned it into billions and stuff." Found out that wasn't true. They found out that he was protected by enough wealth to have allowed him to fail 15 times.
Yep, and his father bailed him out with millions and millions of dollars repeatedly 15 times.
Now most of us, and this is where I get angry this is where I get angry a lot of times at a lot of our young people who don't really do the homework. Now, most of us who didn't come up on that side of the fence, most of us couldn't afford to fail 15 times. We couldn't afford to fail once. And if we did, we paid for it with the rest of our lives.
Exactly. But here's this guy, and it's kind of amusing that people are like, oh my God, this IRS thing with the Trump family, when is he going to jail? Donald Trump isn't going to jail because we're trying to tell you that this is what wealthy people do.
No, hold on for a minute.
What?
No, Angie, generational white wealth does not need to be dismantled. I'm not interested in dismantling their wealth. What I'm interested is in for the fact that this society needs to be fair and give us what it owes us.
Right.
I'm not trying to take from them what they got. But it's I'm not interested in impoverishing other people because of the way that this game been rigged. But there is ways we can fix this. Right. In order the way where, that our wealth can be pay us what you owe us.
Right.
And then let us flip that. If you're so worried, look, these white folks that always say that we always make excuses for whatever failure, whatever, then give us our money. Then that keeps you off the hook. So if we F it up, that's on us.
That's on us. Just give us what you owe us.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about individual families. No. We're not talking about individual families giving us what they owe us. No, we're talking about the government. This is on the government. So yeah, Donald Trump's father was able to break the law. And not just manipulate the tax code, but flat out break the law and create a bunch of shell companies that he funneled the profits from to his infant children to provide streams of income for them for the rest of their lives. Donald Trump is still benefiting from this day what his father did. New York State is actually trying to go after the Trump family, not to put Donald Trump in jail, but to get their money back. They're going after the money. So that's our position.
Right, and when I heard that story today, I'm a couple of days behind it, but when I heard that story today, I said, I ain't even mad at Fred Trump. And I said, you know why I ain't mad at Fred Trump? Because Fred Trump did what any parent would do. To make sure that their kids are set up for the next ride. I'm not going to be here forever. But Fred Trump wasn't looking at him. He was looking at, okay, how, what the future's going to be like for the Trump family.
Right.
You know what I mean? The reason why he allowed his son to fail 15 times is the fact that, and Sarah Huckabee said, oh, well, that just shows how much faith that he had in his son. No, he knew his son was a screw up.
Yep.
That's why he allowed him to fail 15 times. I bet you when he was with his boys in the boardroom and talking about, Donald fucked up again.
I know. Yeah, I gotta take this suitcase of money down to New Jersey and bail him out.
But don't worry, Fred. He'll get it right. He'll get it right. But the fact that Fred Trump had the money to do that. But like I said, he let him fail 15 times. Not that he had confidence in him. You know what I mean? Because if he's supposed to be this businessman, you fail 15 times. That tells me something.
That means that you shouldn't be a businessman.
Right. But it wasn't that. It was about legacy.
Right.
It's about legacy. My son has to succeed in order for the legacy to go on. I can't allow the Trump name to go into the mud. And see, and that's one of the things they rob from us.
Right.
They rob from us the ability to produce our legacies in that form and fashion. We was doing that in Africa long before we came here.
Exactly.
And so that's what they stole from us. That type of wealth produces those type of you remember Back in the Future, the movie. And you see where when Marty went back in time, his father was, some passive nerd or whatever.
Right.
But after some change of events, the future was a lot brighter, a lot different or whatever. And I know, I've heard some people took a different vein in that. But what I'm saying is that when he woke up after those minor changes, they were minor changes. Then when he woke up, his future wasn't as bleak and as it was that he knew about. You know what I mean? That his father was successful. There was this thing. And I know it's a materialistic event, but the thing of it is that this is what they robbed from us.
Exactly.
So even if how different would our futures would have been today had they would have even honored a little bit of their promises?
How about if they had just honored the 40 acres and a mule, the Sherman Order? How about if they had just done that? How different would the posterity, don't miss that, don't miss, how different would the posterity of our people, of our ancestors been if they were allowed the equal opportunity, the equality of opportunity to sow into the benefits that they wanted to produce for their posterity. If they had just allowed us to plan for, if they had just allowed our ancestors to plan for their posterity, the way they broke the law, the law that they claimed to love so much, they're so law and order, the way that they claimed that they broke the law to do for their posterity. All we and our ancestors asked for was equality of opportunity to do that for ours, and that was denied us. That's on the government. That's not on Trump's family.
Nope.
That's not Trump's family's fault. And they're not smart because they did it. No. They broke the law. But like you said, Daddy Trump did in providing for his children and their future what any parent wants to do for their children, to make sure that they can at least operate in the world.
Or you'll be given, yes, right. There you go.
Regardless of what kind of world they're operating in.
Yep.
To have something to stand on, some kind of a foundation to stand on, to start off with, or to support themselves with. So when we look at, going right back to our original discussion, the Supreme Court justices, not just the justices, but the process. And not just the process, but the people who are propping that process up. Why do you think they appoint these kinds of people to a court that interprets a centuries-old document that was never intended to include us? Why do you think they appoint those kind of people to that kind of a legislative body where these people can't ever be fired from? They can die on the court. They can die in the court if they want to. They can serve on the Supreme Court while they're senile. That's happened. Or they can retire. They can time their retirement until a friendly administration comes in, and they can let the president of that administration select the Supreme Court to advance the ideology of that particular party. And if you think the Democrats would have been better, just consider that Barack Obama, trying to get along with the Republicans, wanted to nominate a moderately conservative Supreme Court justice. So even the Democrats aren't our friends.
Yeah, and that was a great opportunity wasted if Obama wasn't so arrogant in his belief that he, through the sheer force of his personality, could make these people bend to his will. Yeah. And I mean, but other than that, we have to understand the nature of this beast that we're living in. Yeah. And the fact that this generational wealth and all this other kind of stuff with Trump and stuff, America's about myth building. Mm-hmm. You could take, you could take somebody, man, that just got right off the boat, and all of a sudden, because it really killed me when they talk about the men who built America, the Carnegies and the Rockefellers and all them. And you could take a guy like Joe Kennedy who turned bootleg money into into money that will finance a presidential campaign.
That's right. That's right. And is he ever remembered for the fact that he was a criminal? No, he's remembered because he was a business magnate.
Yeah, he's the patriarch of a political dynasty.
That's right. So listen, we hope we were able to tie this whole Supreme Court, the bigger issues with the Supreme Court, outside of just how bad Kavanaugh is, together with these other issues that might seem like on the surface they're unconnected, but they're absolutely all connected to this enormous system of white supremacy and white male patriarchy and white male privilege that we have been fighting since this country has been a country, really. Since this country was just a bunch of colonies of rejects from Europe. We have to understand that we have to fight on all fronts. We really do. This isn't a fight for the faint of heart. Like you said, hon, some of us are strong enough to have withstood all of this generational trauma. For better or for worse, I think we're two of those kinds of people.
Well,
but plenty more of us are not.
See, the thing of it is, in order to survive trauma, you have to have support. One of the things that we don't get in the black community a lot of times is support. We don't have a lot of support systems that would ensure, folks, it's something that we really, really we have to start internalizing this thing. Because we were having this conversation the other day where I think the dumbest thing that black parents could do nowadays is to kick their kid out at 18.
Oh, that's a whole nother...
we won't get into that now. Yes. But what I'm saying is that's the dumbest thing that any black... If you hate your child, do that.
If you want your child to struggle and tread water and suffer in this white supremacist, avaricious society, kick them out when they're 18.
So that's and we have always known, as black people I'm talking about, we have always known. And our ancestors always known, hell, our parents always known that, you couldn't play the game the way they wanted you to play it. No. Because we knew that it wasn't set up for us. And those that we there was the Snowfall that we was watching.
Oh, that's a great show.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's a scene in there which I think is very, very timely for what I'm getting relevant for what I'm about to say now. Here's a guy, big time drug dealer, who wants to save his mother's house.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the mother, because, black folks, we this moralizing thing. And that's not a critique of her. This is how she grew up. This is a bad thing. I don't take bad money and this and that other. So he gets a corporation made.
Right.
So she discovers that this corporation that she doesn't know anything about paid off her mortgage.
Right.
She owns this house now.
Mm-hmm.
So when she finally discovered that it was her son, the drug dealer, and when she confronts him, he tries to explain to her mom, I created this corporation, and so it was through my corporation. So basically, he was saying like, this is legit. You know what I mean? It's not like me taking money from the street, putting it in your hand, telling you to go to the bank.
Right.
Mind you, now the bank that she's been paying her mortgage payments to all this time, she missed one payment and they wanted to take her house.
That's right.
Now, but this is the thing that got me. After she moralized to him and said how dirty his money was and he said, so you're going to sit up here and tell me, he said, that, he said, you make it impossible for me to please you. So she went on and on and on. And she said, it's wrong. He said, no, what's wrong is you kissing the ass of this boss of yours for 15 years and get fired without any explanation. He said, what's wrong is the bank going to take your house after you only missed one payment.
Right.
He said, what's wrong is the fact, and he went all the way back in black folks' history. He said, you played by the rules and got played.
We've been playing by the rules since we've been here.
He said, we've been playing by the rules since we've been here. And he said, and all they keep doing is screwing us over and over again. And he said, you don't want a free house? He said, our people been catching hell since we've been in this country, and you don't want a free house?
But meanwhile, you got Fred Trump.
Right, but my point being is this, is the fact that we understood that in this country that we couldn't, that moralization that she had that come from the church and stuff, that's all fine and dandy. That's why I said it wasn't a critique on her. But what her son was trying to tell her is that your way wasn't making it in this, because they don't respect that. You know what I mean? No, what I'm doing is what they're respecting. And, so this is what he was trying to tell her. No, he said, you played the game by the rules and got played. They don't respect that. Playing the game by the rules in the capitalist society keeps you as a prey. That's right.
That's right. And people like Fred Trump, they know damn well.
They didn't want their kids to be prey. You know what I mean? And so, and the Trump family wasn't perfect. His older brother was an alcoholic.
Which is why Daddy Trump actually favored Donald.
Right, exactly, because they couldn't rely on Fred Jr. You know what I mean?
So, man, all this stuff, we have to stop pretending like the battles we are fighting, raising the minimum wage and fighting police brutality and fighting against bad Supreme Court nominees. We have to stop pretending that these battles are not all a part of one enormous war. They are. They are different skirmishes in an enormous war that we've been fighting for centuries. Right. We can continue to let these people make these decisions that keep us fractured and distracted in a bunch of other places, or we can understand that we are fighting one enemy. We are fighting white supremacy that uses white male patriarchy and capitalism to do all of this stuff to all of us. So now the ball's in our court. That's all we got for tonight, y'all.
Yeah, because I know y'all seen me with my eyes open. Yeah, I put in some long hours at work.
He did, and he was such a good sport. Yep. He was such a good sport. So putting his shirt on. Now I'm going to let my honey go to bed because he is tired. And listen, if you like what you see and hear here in Luqman Nation, share our video both on Facebook and on YouTube. Invite your friends to like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter. And if you really, really enjoy the work we do, consider becoming a patron or consider a one-time contribution to Luqman Nation, either through our GoFundMe campaign or through PayPal. You can find us on Patreon, GoFundMe, and PayPal under Luqman Nation, LuqManNation. Once again, remember, next Thursday we will be talking to Ajamu Baraka
and
Reverend Graylin Hagler, who is our pastor, and we're going to talk about this fight against the overturning of Initiative 77, which would have raised the tipped minimum wage in Washington, D.C.
And just as a side note to that, everybody keep talking about how Republicans want to remove black votes. Well, these are Democrats that are trying to do the same thing, but you got to come and tune in and find out.
That's right. So thanks a lot for watching tonight. Tune in next week. Be really, really good to each other as always, everybody. Peace.